Just when you thought it was safe to go back into the water. Lesbian space witches. The Acolyte just dropped its 7th episode and it... I don't know where Jaws comes into this. Let's restart it.
The following is a world-class Bullshitters exclusive.
The Acolyte just dropped its 7th episode, and it's banking on the fact that you loved the 3rd episode. You know, the one with the kids and the witches? This week's Acolyte is a flashback to no one's favorite episode, but this time we get to see it from a certain point of view. Yeah, folks, they're really getting literal with Star Wars. Again. And yes, it's terrible. But before we get into this laughable mess, today's video is brought to you by me with a product that is guaranteed to make you laugh for all the right reasons. Stealing Solo asks the greatest what-if question of all time. What if a group of disgruntled Star Wars fans kidnap Harrison Ford and force him to remake Star Wars in their basement? That, and a whole lot more, is answered in Stealing Solo, a Captain's Parody. Stealing Solo has been called Laugh Out Loud Funny and the greatest Star Wars parody since Spaceballs, and it's available now for a limited time only. Go to stealingsolo.com, which is powered by Shopify, so you get the reward-winning safety and security, and get yourselves a copy today. Once we sell through this limited backstock, I'm going back to the drawing board to bring you the sequel, which parodies Luke Skywalker's fall from grace, and finally the closing chapter, which I can't wait to get to, Frankenfisher, the Bride of Solo. And yes, it's exactly what you think it is. So folks, the only way to get that is go to stealingsolo.com right now, get yourselves a copy, and enjoy the greatest Star Wars parody since Spaceballs. Episode 7 starts on Brendok. 16 years ago. We see all the fallen Jedi alive again. They're sitting around a campfire and talking. They're on the planet looking for a Vergence, which is a power strong enough to create life. They claim to be on a noble mission, but it's kind of boring and they want to go home. The Jedi separate and Sol stumbles upon Osha and May in the woods. He follows them home and you've already seen this episode, so let's speed things up. Sol tells the Jedi that these girls are in trouble. He can sense it. The Jedi go to the lair of the lesbian space witches. We see the mental graping that the Space Witch does to Torben. Inside of his head, we hear her ask him if he wants to go home and that if he begs, she'll set him free. Here we see that the witches aren't as innocent as May thinks, but somehow it gets worse. The Jedi leave the Coven and head back to the ship. Back on the ship, the Jedi field team contacts the Council for their approval of the situation. Sol doesn't want to wait. He wants to train Osha. Trinity from the Matrix then calls him out on his desire and says, "Don't confuse what you want with what Osha wants." The next day, we see the girls take the Jedi test. Torben takes a sample of May's blood. After that, May tells the Jedi about the Ascension, where two become one. She's convinced they'll become the leader of the Coven. The Jedi then ask how a child can lead. She doesn't know. It's an honor to be sacrificed, she says. After submitting the test, the Jedi deny the other Jedi of testing the girls. The Jedi have interfered too much already. After that, the results of the blood test come back. The girls are a symbiont, one consciousness in two bodies. The girls are the Vergence the Jedi have been looking for. Torben races back to the Coven. He believes that once they find the Vergence, they can leave Brendok and go home. Before he arrives, the lesbian space witches prepare for battle with the battle cry, "Witches, arm yourselves!" Indara and Kelnaka fly towards the Coven in an attempt to stop Torben and Sol. Inside the Coven, we see May start the fire, but now we see more of the scene. Originally, it was nefarious. She was evil. Now she's just burning herself and she dropped the flame. It's not as intentional as we once thought. Torben and Sol arrive at the gate of the Coven. He asks where the girls came from. How were they created? The main lesbian space witch turns into a dust cloud and attempts to fly towards May, but Sol stabs the cloud and it turns back into the mom, and she dies. Her last words were how she was going to let Osha go and become a Jedi, and at this point we're supposed to feel sympathy. The witches attack the Jedi. Sol doesn't want to fight, he just defends himself. The other lesbian space mother also turns into a dust cloud. She flies into the body of Kelnaka and possesses the Wookiee Jedi. Sol and Torben defend themselves against the enraged Kelnaka. Kelnaka is too powerful and almost has them beat, but then Trinity swoops in and uses a Jedi mind trick to heal Kelnaka's mind. For some reason, her freeing Kelnaka from the mind control kills all the space witches. It's just like that scene in The Phantom Menace. Pulling it back. It's just like that scene in The Phantom Menace or The Avengers. They all just die. After that incredibly stupid plot element, Indara tells Sol to get the girls. Here we finally see Sol's big sin. The twins are on a catwalk, and Sol using the power of the Force to hold it up. His Force power meter drains, and he's only able to save one of the girls. He saves Osha and lets May fall. Back on the ship, the Jedi decide to cover up the whole thing and lie to the Council to protect themselves and Osha. This episode ends with some hip-hop music to close out the show. It's difficult to have sympathy for the lesbian space witches. It's not because they're lesbians or from outer space, but it's because they escalated the threat, and in reality, the Jedi were just defending themselves. One could argue the Jedi shouldn't have gotten involved in the first place. Yes, but once the Mother corrupted Torben, his actions were based on what she did to him. The whole thing plays out like Space Waco or Spaco. Instead of David Koresh, there's Laverne, Shirley, and their coven of... If you're in the UK, you know what I'm saying here. My biggest complaint is that these are the actions that forced the Jedi to end himself? Come on, that was weak! Being possessed by a space witch, fighting off a bow and arrow attack, and defending yourself from a possessed friend is worthy of a self-deletion? That's really bad writing. This whole series was built on a mysterious event that was so tragic, the Jedi would do anything to keep the truth from coming out, including ending it all. And this was it? Wow, I haven't been this underwhelmed since the rise of Skywalker. All the witches dying at once was incredibly stupid too. So the Jedi were just supposed to let the possessed Kelnaka kill them all? It was literally self-defense, and all Indara did was use the mind-healing technique to save her friend. Them all dying was stupid, if that's even what killed them. Could they have suffocated from a lack of oxygen caused by the fire? Were they burned alive? Who knows? Even less care. It's more important to try and deconstruct the Jedi Order than give a valid reason for their guilt. All of this, and I mean all of this, leads to a finale that has no impact. Now that we see how stupid May's motivations are, and mostly based on lies, what's the payoff in the finale? You can't tie everything together magically because these threads are burnt to a crisp. Is it the Sith corrupting her mind? No, we're actually seeing the events play out in real time. And what's the deal with Osha? Sol did right by her. It was dumb that the Force powered out and he couldn't save both, but why should Osha be mad? Is it the sexy Sith that's going to confuse her? And why aren't these ladies strong enough for the truth to come out? When Osha and May met, Osha shot at her. There's no reason Osha would want vengeance on Sol and the other Jedi. She wanted to be a Jedi from the get-go. She got what she wanted. Yes, her family was killed, but Sol didn't kill them. They attacked the Jedi, and the deaths of the space lesbian witches are self-defense. Why am I supposed to have sympathy for these characters? This entire thing could have been solved with a conversation, and the characters all interacted long enough that there was time for this to come out. It would have been real easy for Sol just to take Osha aside and say,
"Hey kid, I was unable to save your sister in the fire that she caused, because your mother told her to get angry and use her power to hurt you. Your family was killed because they have a hive mind, and your mother's turned into sentient dust clouds, like Galactus in the Fantastic Four movie. They possessed Wookiee and tried to have it kill us. We used a mind wipe to free him, and that somehow killed the rest. We ourselves aren't even sure how this works. The showrunner is an idiot."
I'm dying to hear people make sense of this episode. It was absolute crap. It's illogical, good character motivations are non-existent. I don't know how the showrunner expects people to care about this. These characters are poorly written. A revenge story with more holes in it than Swiss cheese? A murder mystery that Big Bird could solve? What is this, and who the hell is this for? The creators of this dumpster fire burned nearly $200 million on this? You know what the best part about all of this is? Not the terrible episode, not the ranting, it's the fact that this show is failing miserably, and no matter the garbage they try to come up with to defend the show, well, the truth is coming out and it's a lot uglier. Viewing data provided by the Nielsen Company appears to show that the premiere of The Acolyte was one of the least watched in the history of Disney Star Wars television. Per the noted analytics firm's numbers for the week of June 3rd to June 9th, The Acolyte pulled in roughly 488 million collective viewing minutes across the two-episode debut for an average of 244 million minutes each. In doing so, the series managed to place 7th overall on the week's most watched original TV streaming ratings leaderboard, coming in behind Dancing for the Devil, The 7 Million TikTok Cult, Geek Girls, Evil, Bridgerton, Sweet Tooth, and Eric, all produced and co-produced by Netflix. And sadly for Disney's PR team, according to Nielsen's own data, The Acolyte posted the second worst premiere rating in the history of Disney Star Wars television. For comparison, the respective Nielsen numbers for each episode of the series are as follows. Mandalorian Season 1, data not available. Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 1, 1 billion minutes. Book of Boba Fett, Episode 1, 389 million minutes. Obi-Wan Kenobi, 2 episodes, 1 billion minutes in total, averaging 513 million per episode. Andor, 3 episodes, 624 million in total, averaging 208 million per episode. The Mandalorian Season 3, 1 episode, 823 million. Ahsoka, 2 episodes, 829 million, total 414.5 million average views. Per these records, the only series premiere to pull in less than The Acolyte was Andor, though notably just by 47 million. As noted above, this confirmed data from a noted and trusted industry source no less throws a massive wrench into Disney's previous claims that The Acolyte viewership represents a massive franchise victory. On July 1st, Screen Rant published an article alleging that, according to exclusive data obtained from a streaming service, Real Good, The Acolyte is the second most successful Star Wars series in terms of streaming and engagement. We have a video on that, not only proving that that's bullshit, and it proves to you how jilted the data actually is. However, it turns out that this data is a little more vague, and I'll leave that for the video proper. You can go back and check that one out to get a little more information. So the show is crap, it's not successful, and somehow it's all our fault. Shut the front door on all that noise. You know, I'd be angry if this shit wasn't so damn funny. I'm embarrassed to have watched this show, but I do it for you folks, so you don't have to suffer. Thankfully, the pain ends next week, and WCBS can go to talk about a lot of things that are not Star Wars. God, I am so excited for that. I feel like I'm in prison right now, and I'm just serving a sentence. Hey, guy, you liked this thing when you were a child. You loved this thing. It influenced your life, and now you gotta suffer. Well, I'm happy that the suffering ends next week, and I don't have to pull a Master Torben, if you know what I mean. So folks, thank you for watching. WCPS is more than just Star Wars, and I'll have a lot more content coming your way that's beyond Star Wars. I have a new toy video series. It's something very special, and I'm not going to tell you just yet until the first episode airs, but I already have some stores lined up. I'll be traveling the world to see some of the coolest collectibles that you can possibly imagine. And of course, I'm going to do it with style and world class. Folks, if you're like me, you once loved Star Wars, and one easy way to deal with the pain is by laughter. So folks, go to stealingsolo.com right now and get yourself a copy of the graphic novel in which a group of disgruntled Star Wars fans kidnap Harrison Ford and force him to remake Star Wars in their basement. This book has been massively successful. We've grossed over $150,000 with this one book alone, and I'm so proud of the work I've done on it. And I want you to go get a copy of Wokebusters as well. The countdown is on. There's only 17 days left, and once the book goes away, it's going to go away. It's not going to be a Stealing Solo situation. So grab yourselves a copy of that and be on the lookout. It makes fun of the world we live in, shows like The Acolyte. It's a really, really fun read, and I know you're going to love it. So folks, I know you love Stealing Solo. The Fandom Menace edition, we're down to the 50s now in terms of how many are available, and there's about 5 and a little bit left of a case. So I'm just letting you know, this book is moving fast. These are all first edition printings. They're great books, high quality paper, all that jazz. But at the end of the day, it's a fun story you'll all love, and everyone that's read it, they love it as well. So folks, support someone who's out there making good independent work that doesn't seem independent. I'll be back next week with another review of The Acolyte. Thank God it's over. And then we're on to some better stuff, including Alien Month here on the channel. So folks, join us for our first themed month in August, where we do drunk watch-alongs of Alien, Aliens, and a few others in the franchise, all leading up to the new film and a whole lot more. The guys and I have been recording a bunch of new content on Patreon. We're talking about Lord of the Rings, we're talking about Ancient Aliens, we're talking about all sorts of stuff that you love. And for $1 a month or $5, which is only 17 cents a day, you can get access to that. The best remedy to escape from all the garbage of 2024 is a little bit of escapism. Let WCBS take you away from this banal, boring life and entertain you and make you laugh. Folks, we'll be back next time with more. In the meantime, be smart, be safe, be cool, but always be excellent to each other.